Introduction to the law. What exactly is law? Law can be defined as rules and regulations for controlling human activities. However, all rules and regulations are not laws. Laws are those rules behind there is a sanction of punishment or reward by the state. A law also can be defined as a general rule of external human action enacted and enforced by sovereign legitimate authority. Now, let's move on to the purpose of law and why law are different from other countries.
What is the purpose of law?
Firstly, laws safeguard the individual liberty and rights. Law also aid in the maintenance of social order.
But, why laws are different from other countries?
Because every country's got different histories, geographical, and political. Next, because each country's legal system has its own sources of law. So, what are the sources of law? First of all, is custom. Customs are derived from the culture and practices, and it will eventually becomes rules and binds society. Most of the laws are built from custom. Next, is religion. In West, laws have been enacted based on the Bible or Protestant ideas. While, in Muslims countries, the laws are based on the Quran, and Muslims in Malaysia are subject to Sharia law, and they have a Sharia court to punish any wrongdoing. Next is adjudication. It refers to legislation enacted by judges. A judge serves as both a lawmaker and a source of law in the state for a unique case. Moreover, jurists' responsibilities include collecting, comparing, and rationally organizing customary concepts, as well as establishing guiding principles for potential cases. Finally, all laws in the country are under the control of the legislature. Only the legislature has the power to amend the country's constitution and laws. Now, let's look at the laws comparison between Malaysia and New Zealand.
Did you know, Malaysia and New Zealand are the members of Commonwealth? Both Malaysia and New Zealand are practicing parliamentary democracy and constitutional monarchy. And, they also inherited some of political, legal and administrative systems from England. However, there are legal differences between these two countries. Although there have been many proposals to abolish the death penalty, Malaysia is still enforcing the death penalty until today. Next, many people still believe that the death penalty could give justice to the victims and their families. Examples of crimes that lead to the death penalty in Malaysia are murder and drug trafficking. As a result, death penalty is still functional in Malaysia.
On the other hand, New Zealand has fully abolished the death penalty since 1961. It was repealed in a free vote of Parliament, in which 10 members of the national government sided with the opposition.
Next, most of them believe that the death penalty could not deter criminals from committing crimes. For your information, the last death penalty was executed in 1957, where Walter Bolton was hanged at Mount Eden Prison. Now, the current punishment enforced in New Zealand is to imprison criminals. As a result, death penalty is not functional in New Zealand.
Impact of law on society and LGBT issues. What happened to law on LGBT issues in Indonesia? Indonesia's law on LGBT issues impose punishment based on Islamic law. Aceh, Indonesia is practicing Islamic laws that were introduced in 2015. Aceh was previously one of Southeast Asia's most powerful Islamic sultanates. In Aceh, Indonesia, consensual same-sex sex acts are punishable by up to 100 lashes and up to 100 months in jail under the criminal code, whereas zina infractions are punishable by up to 100 lashes. Impact of LGBT issues in Indonesia. The Aceh's Sharia that getting stricter make people afraid to get involved with LGBT communities. Inevitably, limit people's freedom to behave in certain ways. Next, let's look at law on LGBT in New York. LGBT community in New York City is protected from retribution, discrimination, and bias-based profiling by law enforcement. LGBT communities in New York are protected by city human rights law. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in June 2015 that same-sex couples had the right to marry under the U.S. Constitution. Impact of LGBT issue in New York. LGBT communities in New York have the right to speak up about their communities.
To conclude, law is really important for the formation of a nation. Without law, stability of the government could not be achieved. National stability is unattainable. It is also important to create laws to give benefits and good for the people and the whole nation. Law needs to be obeyed by all people no matter what status the person holding on.